Algebra 1 students, are you struggling with being afraid of math? Do you have nightmares about walking into Mr. Hale's class and knowing you're going to have to give work on an amazing subject, one that's always scared you? Well, folks, today what we're going to do is try to work on getting over some of those fears and get started on one of the most important topics in this class. It's the beginnings of slope. For now, we're calling it rate of change, and we'll talk about how that's the same thing as slope as well. So rate of change is the relationship between two changing quantities. You can see it's sort of a formula. We don't really use this exactly, but change in the dependent variable divided by change in the independent. The way we really use the formula is more with the term slope. Now, we've talked about this in class just a bit. You've seen it in prior classes, but slope is the steepness, so to speak, of a line. It's vertical change divided by horizontal change, the rise over the run, the change in y divided by change in x. There are lots of ways to describe slope, but all of them have to do essentially with the steepness of a line. There are multiple ways that we can find slopes depending on the information that's given to us. So on these first three, what I'm going to do is think of it just visually. What's the change? So I'm going to look right here, and I can see that I'm rising by 2, and I'm going right 1. That's one space there. So I know my slope is the change that's vertical, which is 2, divided by the horizontal change, which is 1. They're both in positive directions, up and right, so my slope is 2. Let's take a look at the next one here. Again, we're going to draw that little triangle. In this case, it's not quite as little as the first one, although I could do other points besides these two, I suppose. You can see right here that I've gone down 4. Since this is going down, I'm going to call it negative 4, and then right 4, which would be plus 4. And so my slope is the vertical change, which is a change down by 4, divided by the horizontal change, which was right 4, which gives us negative 1. All right, why don't you pause the video, find the slope on number 3, see if you have the hang of this yet. All right, welcome back. You can see my work on number 3. Essentially, drawing the triangle and realizing that this graph was moving up 3 spaces and right 2 was the most important thing. That gave me a slope of 3 halves. It's never a bad thing to look back and make sure things make sense. And one of the key things with slope is the slope positive or negative? Sometimes we forget about that when we do the calculation, but just by looking at it we can tell. The first problem and the third problem is we move from left to right. Those lines are moving upwards, so they have a positive slope. Number 2, the line as we move from left to right is going down. That's a negative slope. All of those make sense. All right. Now, we've been talking about how you find slope of lines, but the two types of lines we haven't actually explicitly discussed yet would be vertical and horizontal lines. We have a little phrase that you can use to help you understand the relationship between slope and horizontal lines or vertical lines. It's Hoy-Vux. Okay, so horizontal is for the H. The O is actually, we're thinking of it as a 0, and that's the slope of the line. The slope is undefined. Y represents it's a y equals something equation, like y equals 5, for instance. Okay. The Vux part of this, watch how you say that, is actually dealing with the vertical lines. This time the slope is undefined, and it's always an x equals equation like x equals 3 or something like that that gives us a vertical line. So these kinds of questions are actually really quick if you know what you're doing. Just like this, number 4 says find the slope of the line. Well, this is a horizontal line. When I think about that Hoy-Vux phrase, it answers the question. Horizontal slope is 0. This one's vertical. Vertical line. This goes to the last 3 letters in Hoy-Vux, the VUX, which means vertical lines have undefined slopes. and you can abbreviate that as UND period if you would prefer. Sometimes it takes more than just simply looking and writing down a number or drawing the triangle. At times we actually have to use the formula. So let's do that here on questions 6 through 8. Find the slope of the line that passes through each pair of points. So we'll start with this, m equals, and by the way, I didn't highlight this earlier, but m is the letter we use to represent slope pretty regularly. All right, and m is going to be the change in y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. Or in this case, I'm going to write it this way, 1 minus 0. That's these two values right here, divided by 2 minus 0. And then we can simplify that, 1 over 2. That's the slope of that line. Now again, you could graph that and draw the line and count spaces if you'd like, or we can just use the formula and get our answer that way. Let's take a look at another one. -2, -3, and 6, 5. We're going to use the same formula. So I'm going to do m equals, and I'll go with 5 minus -3 divided by, and that of course came from 5 minus -3, divided by 6 minus -2. Some of you may have noticed that on the first example, I did the first point minus the second, first y value minus the second, first x minus second x, where here I went second y minus first y, second x minus first x. The reality is it doesn't matter which order you do those in, but you have to do it the same. So if you start on, for instance, on number 7, if you start with 5 minus -3, you've got to do 6 minus -2. Now one thing we do know is when you subtract a negative, that is exactly the same as adding. So 5 plus 3 is 8, 6 plus 2 is also 8, and you don't need a calculator for that because 8 divided by 8 is exactly 1. Alright, again, pause the video, try number 8 on your own, see how you're doing finding slope with the formula. Alright, welcome back. I've found the slope on number 8. I found it to be 2 over -5. Now you can actually put that negative symbol as a -2 over +5, or you could even just put the negative out in front and make it like this, -2/5. I'll show you the three options we have. These are all equivalent statements, and sometimes that throws people off, and I don't want it to. If there's one negative, it's negative. These three things all mean the same thing. But in the end, the slope is -2/5. All right, let's take a look at our last slide here. This time we're given a little bit different information. We're given the points, the ordered pairs, but one of them is missing. So it's 3, y. We don't know what that number is. We're going to have to figure it out. But we are given the slope. So what we'll do here is actually use the formula. y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1 equals the slope. Now we could solve this. Let's go ahead and do some simplification. So y minus 4 is equal, or excuse me, divided by -4 is equal to 1/4. What I want to do is multiply both sides of the equation by -4. There are a few ways you could approach this, by the way. You may have thought of a different approach, and if you get the same answer as me, you'll know you did it right. So we'd have y minus 4 equals -1. Add 4 to each side. Y equals 3. So we found our missing value. This time y was equal to 3. All right, let's take a look at number 10. And by the way, if you wanted to check this, you could just plug it in here, 7, 4, 3, 3, and calculate the slope. You'd get 1/4. Same instructions, new ordered pair. Let's take a look at number 10. 6 minus 5 divided by -3 minus x equals the slope of -1. All right, let's start working on simplifying this. I know the numerator here is going to be 1. Denominator is -3 minus x still equals -1. Now, I don't like having the fraction here. I'm going to multiply both sides of the equation by negative 3 minus x. That will get rid of my denominator. Boom, gone. And then we can distribute the negative 1, so we'll have 1 equals 3 plus x, and subtract 3 from each side. X equals negative 2. Folks, I hope that some of your fears regarding slope have been taken care of. I hope that when you need help, you'll find it. Don't go to bed afraid of math. Come to school a little bit early. Come get some help if you need it. But in any case, I hope you guys have a spectacular day. Come to class ready to work hard.